Good afternoon from the Money Desk. The 15th Brics Summit will start next week in Sandton, and we speak now to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Ebrahim Patel, on their readiness. Minister, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Let's start with the state of readiness. What are the key focus areas for next week?
Well, first, thank you very much, Melissa, for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. The Brics Summit's got the political component, so that would be the heads of state coming here, and that's all looking very strong. We've got the early groups coming here and sorting things out, but attached to that will be a state visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping, which will take place on Tuesday. We've decided, though, with this summit, this leaders summit, that business will feature very, very strongly. So we have what I call the big five of business that will be taking place around about the same time that the main summit will take place. In addition to the summit and the business activities, there'll also be an outreach to a number of other heads of state, principally from the rest of the African continent, but also other parts of the world that are attending for the breakaway session that the BRICS leaders will have with other heads of state. So everything is really going very well. Tomorrow we're launching one of the activities that the DTIC has put together. And I think it's going to be a strong messaging about South Africa being open for business, about enormous opportunities that there are in our economy.
Minister, which sectors are you hoping to rally major investment towards?
One of the opportunities for us is the green economy more generally. China today is the biggest producer of electric vehicles in the world, and battery manufacturing, which is critical to an electric vehicle, is located so strongly in China. Just 2 weeks ago, I met the world's biggest electric vehicle component maker for batteries at CATL, and the biggest car maker in electric vehicles, BYD. They're even bigger than Tesla. So greening the economy is a big one. We also will have an agreement that we will sign with China on what we call the blue economy. These are transport, logistics, and the economic opportunities along our coastline. The digital economy is big. Many of the BRICS countries have really moved hard in building their digital economies. So there's opportunities for partnerships there. And of course, investment in some of the traditional sectors, manufacturing, food processing, and mining. So these are some of the key areas. There are 5 big activities that the business community will be looking at. The first is tomorrow, the launch of the industrial exhibition, showcasing South African and other African products and manufacturing capability. On Monday, we do a manufacturing forum where businesses will be meeting and sharing experiences on greening the economy, on building integrated supply chains. Between Sunday and Tuesday, there will be a number of sector forums on different areas of economic activity, from services right through. On Tuesday itself is the big event. It's the business forum. And this is where we will have more than 1,000 firms and investors gathered together in Sandton from the 5 countries, but also from a number of other countries elsewhere on the African continent and from other parts of the world will come here to engage. The heads of state will also address that business forum. It will be their opportunity to engage with the business community. And then finally, there will be these bilateral meetings, firm-to-firm meetings, where we hope the credit cards get pulled out and contracts are sealed. And it's all of that positions South Africa as a destination for investment, as a procuring source for goods and services, and as a significant partner in technological developments and in utilizing the opportunities that flow from the African Continental Free Trade Area. So in our discussion, there's a BRICS Business Council. They're very bullish about the opportunity.
So you've mentioned a few of the plans here, but South Africa has a trade deficit with the rest of the bloc members. What is the plan here to balance the scales? You were talking about the digital economy and a lot of other things, but what is your main goal? Is it for us to improve and increase our exports to our bloc members?
So the trade story is a bit more complicated than that, Melissa. Interestingly, with China, we run a trade surplus. But the South African data does not include gold sales to China and products that are going via Maputo Harbor. So once we've cleaned up and reconciled all of that data, we run quite a healthy surplus with China. The problem, though, is the composition of trade. We largely sell raw materials to BRICS countries and import finished goods, either consumer goods or capital goods. So a lot of our conversation is about changing the composition of trade, getting more manufactured products sold into other BRICS countries, and enabling South African firms to capture more of the economic value add in those value chains. So that's what the discussion is, and therefore you'll see a big focus on manufacturing and productive services in those discussions.
So, Minister Patel, one thing that has also been a sore point for many multinationals operating in South Africa, not just from the bloc, has been the visa regime. Now, this is having a big impact on skilled workers entering the country and working in critical sectors. Have you engaged with the Department of Home Affairs on these issues?
Yes, we have, and I think many of the BRICS countries' concerns are absolutely valid and legitimate, and both Minister Motsoaledi and I are in agreement that the system needs improvement. Home Affairs has begun now to roll out an improvement. There was a period when there were big challenges with the visa system. There was allegations of payments that were made to officials. And so Home Affairs has been cleaning that up. We put together now for a number of the BRICS countries a special system to enable fast tracking of visa applications. But there's a lot more we need to do. We've got to speed up the reform of the visa system. And this is one of the big discussions between Home Affairs and DTIC to see how we can assist each other to get that resolved as quickly as possible. We've made it clear to BRICS investors that we recognize that there are critical skills that are required when an investor is going to put billions of dollars in our economy. They need to know that they've got a degree of freedom to bring in senior staff, your CFO, your CEO, technical skills, some people with exposure to other markets who are able to integrate operations. And so we want to be able to do it, yes, for BRICS countries, but also for other major investors to have a more bespoke system that enable them to bring in skills at speed and without all of the bureaucratic requirements that very often slow these things down. So there's a common commitment from Home Affairs and ourselves to address this challenge.
So many businesses often lament on the issues around policy and the regulatory environment. Are you satisfied that the government has ramped up structural reforms to, like you say, be open for business?
I think we've done a lot, and I think we can begin to showcase many of that in the business discussions over the next few days, particularly in the energy sector. But not only in energy, there are also other areas where we've been looking at how to just make the ease of doing business a strength that South Africa has rather than a weakness. On the company's registration front, for example, the CIPC over the last few years has really made it so much easier. It's a seamless process to register companies and to reach a range of other public services from registration of UIF and WCA. And it enables businesses to move with speed. And in addition to that, what we've done in areas in energy now to enable self-generation is significant. But there are still quite a few problems. There are problems at local government level with local regulatory requirements that are not yet aligned to the national push for an easier environment. And in addition to that, we recognize that the world is constantly changing. We don't only have to be an easy regime to do business in, but we've got to learn from the innovations other countries are introducing and match those or exceed those. So I don't want to say that our job is done, but I want to say that we have made quite a bit of progress, and we're confident that the direction that the President has nudged Cabinet on is a positive one, and is a much more transparent and open one towards the business community on matters of regulatory requirements. Of course, over the next number of months, we hope to do even more and to publicize that at the investment conference that will be held early next year.
And then just lastly, Minister, how important is the Africa Free Trade Agreement in these discussions? We have seen many other countries on the continent show interest in being part of BRICS, but the African Free Trade Agreement can't be disregarded.
It is, Melissa, one of the biggest things that come up in the discussion. When we engage, I hosted the Chinese Commerce Minister a week ago, and one of the important areas that they were keen to find out more was the African Continental Free Trade Area. They see an enormous market. We said to them it will be a market which in population size will rival China, but with the difference that it's young people. So the long-term potential of this market is enormous. It's a market that is increasingly urbanizing. It's young people that are digitally connected. It's in an age where Africa is investing more in skills development than at any other point in its history. So it's about utilizing the opportunities of that market by investing here on the African continent. And of course, South Africa has got the financial and other infrastructure for this to be a key gateway to the rest of the continent. It's been a message that's been well received, and your viewers may know that, in fact, one of the important themes of the Brics Summit is about BRICS and Africa, and it's about connecting these large economies elsewhere in the world to the potential and the opportunity of the African continent. And so I think we're very excited. We've invited many business people from elsewhere on the African continent to come here, and many African heads of state will be with us in Gauteng next week.
We look forward to next week, Minister. Thank you so much for your time. That was the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Ebrahim Patel. Still